When you hear the word resistance, what does it really mean? Our next guest says it's about much more than just protesting. In fact, ordinary Americans, not just presidents and politicians, have really been the driving force behind many of the nation's biggest turning points. Right now, we're joined by historian Tad Stoermer, author of the book A Resistance History of the United States. And the book really challenges some of the ways that we think about how change happens in America and what history can teach us about the power of everyday people. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Simone.
So I know you're a historian and you're the author, of this book that just came out beginning of June. You argue that we've been taught the wrong lessons, essentially about how change happens in America. And can you elaborate on that thought?
Well, the story that most Americans are taught is that change comes from operating within our permitted channels that were created by sort of these sainted founders that we should rely on, and that we should work through those channels. We should work through elections, legislation, the courts. I mean, even sort of the occasional protest, and you do that, you deserve to win. Change will come eventually, maybe not now, but if you're patient, it'll come. And because we're taught our system is fundamentally good, not just good that it's efficient, but good that as a moral value, that it functions to produce positive outcomes, particularly when it comes to things like rights and liberty. But that's not how change has happened in American history.
Okay, I wanted to touch
Most
on
of
that.
our
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly
most
on
of our
that thought. When
yeah.
you look back in history, what do the movements that actually succeed kind of have in common?
Well, most of them, in fact, have a vision, first and foremost, a very clear idea about what they want to achieve. It can't just be a grievance. You can't just sort of be against something and you want to continue to give voice to that and protest. You need to, in fact, have a very clear idea about what you want to achieve. And most of the movements that have been successful in American history have had that clear goal about not just the change that they want, but in fact, how to go ahead and make that change happen. And so they've had a clear vision, but they've also had this sense of commonality among them. Most of these movements are not top down. They start at the bottom, and they're not necessarily bottom up, but they're bottom across. It's normal people, regular people who are connecting with each other in order to align and make change happen.
One of the
When
reasons
persuasion fails, you got to act.
One of the reasons I thought our audience would really like to hear from you today was because when you think of, resistance in the modern sense, right, in 2026, we've heard people talk about being fearful of protesting or fearful of retaliation that could come with something like that. And you're seeing something kind of interesting because when you were in DC recently, you're seeing people who want to talk about resistance, who want to participate. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's actually really been invigorating to be able to run into people, particularly while I'm out here talking about this, who are coming out not just to talk about the book, but to talk about the issue, to talk about resistance as an action and what they can do about it now. Being out there with the folks at Flair near the George Gordon Meade Memorial with the longest running protest against Donald Trump in all of America. To be able to see the people who have that kind of energy, and it's not just a grievance, they have a clear idea of how they want change to occur. They understand where the problem is situated and how to make it happen. And to see the connection between those movements in American history that are successful and what is going on right now with all of those people who have an energy, who have a vision, and who have a commitment that it's out there as sort of an untapped potential for what's going on today.
Something else I found really fascinating, not only, your background, you're a historian, you've harnessed the power of social media, you've written this book, but when I talk about you being a powerhouse on social media, how big of a platform is that, like TikTok, how you're connecting with people? You have so many followers, and so what has that experience been like?
Well, it's people are already engaged with the argument. So I'm on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, 650,000 people who are not hardly tuning in because I'm Brad Pitt. I mean, they're tuning in because of how we're engaging history in a critical way and giving people an understanding of what's going on. I think about it as the make it make sense discussion. People think that what's going on around them doesn't make much sense and they want an explanation for it. Well, what we're able to have is a conversation that helps how we got from then to now and how things are going right now make sense. And I think that is what it is, and be able to make sure that we can engage people wherever they are in this conversation and to have them feel like they are a part of it. I think that is as much of a measure of that kind of success for a historian to have this kind of reach. That's as much a measure of that success as anything else.
All right. Historian and author Tad Stoermer, thank you so much for the conversation and for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Simone. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.